Welcome back for another episode of the Office Hours podcast with Professor Brad Perkins. Today, we have a guest in the studio that was brought to me by one of my students in Connie 352. Calvin is back for another return appearance, and he didn't bring his granddad this time, although funny thing, that episode is like one of the most popular ones I've done.
Well, I heard you started to show it in class now, too.
I did. Fun. Yeah, I did. Well, I thought, we had to, what was it? I had to cancel class for something. And for 241, I thought, you know what? I don't have any lectures about materials. But I thought everybody should listen to your granddad.
Yeah, it was a really fun episode. It was good.
I mean, there's just so much institutional knowledge there that once that's gone, it's just gone. And his experiences about, remember just giving him a hard time. Yeah, I made $300 in a month. That was crazy, and I mean that was just a lot of fun. So I'm glad you brought him in. That was a good time. So today we brought someone else. Our subject for the day is something kind of near and dear to my heart: nuclear power. As I tell my students in class, in both classes, multiple classes that I teach, I truly believe that the biggest issues in our students' careers will be energy and water. And clean drinking water and energy are the same issue. You can't get clean drinking water without an abundance of energy. So with that in mind, my other opinion is we don't have enough of it. We don't have enough production. Our demand for it is growing at an insatiable rate, and we can't distribute it even if we could get a whole bunch more produced. So with that in mind, Calvin hunted down an expert in the area. Okay, I'll let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, good morning, Jeremy Bries. I work or live in the same town as Calvin does, and I do know Calvin's grandfather.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, he's very special to our community.
Isn't he?
Yep. Calvin's father, has taken over the business, and they just built my house last year. So they did a fantastic job. Came in on time and on budget, as promised, and so that has been a fantastic construction experience for me. But my family and I, we live outside of the Quad Cities. I have been in the nuclear industry for my entire career after leaving Iowa State. Currently work for a utility based out of the West, and I head the nuclear projects for the utility, with the biggest one being the TerraPower sodium fast reactor that is being built in southwestern Wyoming, which is in our jurisdiction. So as a utility, so that is what I do. Long and storied history before that, which I'm sure we're going to dive in.
We have to dive into that because we have a little bit of shared history, both of us, so that everyone's clear out there. So before I came to Iowa State in 1992, I joined the United States Navy in 1989. I was put into the Naval Nuclear Power Pipeline. So went to A school in 89. Orlando, back when Orlando was a thing. It is not anymore. But then power school, okay, I was an electronics technician, which means I was training to be a reactor operator. Mm-hmm. So I went to power school 1990. God, I don't even remember my class number. That's so like 9002 or 9003 or something like that. But anyway, so went to power school in Orlando in 90, went to prototype at the very first old sub that the
moored training ships.
Yes, that is not what we called it at the time. It was MTS 635, the old USS Sam Rayburn that was cut apart, redone, and parked there in the Naval Weapons Station in Goose Creek, South Carolina. Yes, the MTS 635, also known as the moored tub of shit. Or at least that's what we call it.
It's a great training platform, though.
It is a great training. No, you are 100% right. It is a great training platform. So I went to prototype there, 90, 91, and then I went to my first and only ship. Believe it or not, did you ever hear of submarine NR1?
Yes.
I was on that.
Okay.
I was on that. On it. during overhaul.
Assigned to it.
Yeah, I was assigned to it during overhaul. 91 through 92. It was getting a nuclear refueling on a ship that was never meant to be refueled. So it was
very challenging project.
It was quite the deal. And that was up at Kittery Naval Shipyard. Well, it was called Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, but it was in Kittery, Maine. Right? Did you ever go up to that?
No.
Okay. I mean, a lot of the at that time, a lot of the submarine overhauls on the East Coast were done up there. And then anyway, they cut the ship in parts, pull it apart, weld it back together. It was kind of an unusual thing. It was only at the time, and this is probably still the truth. It was the smallest nuclear powered vessel in the world.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was only 11 feet at beam.
Huh.
11 feet across. The reactor itself was like the size of a large garbage can. You know, it was a very unusual animal. But anyway, so...
Are you sure it was real? Maybe they were faking you out.
Sure it was real. Well, there was a lot of weird stuff on that.
Did you ever actually see it go underway?
Did I ever see... Yeah.
Okay.
Well, okay. It was in the water.
Okay. It got wet.
Yeah, it got wet. So it went back in the ocean.
They make them much bigger than that now.
Yeah, they do. I've heard
a couple
this.
Football fields.
A couple football fields long.
Yep.
You got to understand. Okay, so Calvin, you got to understand that ship being only 11 feet wide and about just over 100 and some odd feet long. All right. And a lot of that was free flood area, so you couldn't even, the people part of it was very small. It was weird. I got a tour of another ship that was a fast attack.
Yep, LA class?
Yeah, LA class that was getting redone there. And I got a tour of that, since I'd only been on prototype and then this little thing. And I was getting this tour and, looking around and getting a tour, and some of the ship's force there says, "So, what do you think?" And I was like, "God, it's so big." And they look at me like, "What is wrong with you? This is not big." I was like, "It feels pretty big to me."
Yeah.
And they're like, "What?"
Have you ever been in an Ohio class one? That's
no,
yeah.
Much bigger, exactly.
Yep.
I mean, those things are monstrous, and so they were like, "Where'd you from?" And I was like, "I was in R1." Oh, yeah, well, that's not a real ship. I was like, "Feels pretty real to me." I don't know. It's nuclear power.
You're still in charge of a nuclear reactor.
Yeah, you're still in charge of a nuclear reactor, so it felt real.
Yeah,
it was just weird. But anyway, so 92, I get picked up for an officer program sent here to Iowa State. And then on other podcasts, I've detailed my journey of how I never made it back to the fleet because of I got injured of all things, on the Iowa State boxing team.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, so that's kind of my familiarity, and so just so
for however abbreviated, thank you for your service.
No, I didn't do anything all that dangerous, really.
That's okay.
I feel my service was pretty boring compared to most, and I didn't really do anything terribly dangerous. So, I mean, thank you for saying that. That's nice, but nah, I was in it for the college money and that kind of thing. So anyway, didn't do anything dangerous. I did get contaminated with primary coolant, but that's not all that dangerous.
You didn't drink any of it, though.
Well, I probably could.
Actually, Rickover has a funny story with that. But
oh yeah, he drank some. Yeah, on the Senate floor. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, funny thing. So about Admiral Rickover. All right. So this is for Calvin and students that might be watching. This is going to turn into
a history podcast really fast.
It is just a little. You got to have a little. I mean, you can't talk nuke stuff without mentioning Rickover, right? Admiral Rickover, the guy that really spearheaded nuclear power in the United States Navy. Dude was absolutely crazy, like insane. Is that fair to say? Genius and insane.
There's a fine line between the two. He was incredibly intelligent, incredibly driven. And absolutely had a vision that nuclear submarines were going to be the way, and made it happen.
Yeah, and just by sheer force of will and personality, pushed the United States Navy, nuclear Navy, in areas that nobody thought possible. He had a lot of vision. Some of that vision got him in a little bit of trouble. I heard the rumor was, and I don't know if this is true or not, but we can talk about this since my submarine was highly classified back in the day. It was so classified that that the rumor was that Rickover was building it from slush funds. that was unauthorized by Congress, and it was actually my submarine that may have got him finally shown the door. I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, he was also like 80 years old.
Well, there's that too.
Eventually, you have to retire. Like the president will just have to retire.
Yeah, you have to. But building your own submarine.
But it's fun to speculate, you know?
Yeah, and if it's not true, I wish it was. You know, but see, my submarine was not a warship. It was a deep submersible for exploring places and grabbing things off the floor of the ocean that nobody should be doing. But anyway, it was cool. Yep. All right, so that's my background. I am not a nuclear expert by any stretch of the imagination. I'm merely what I would call nuclear literate. I understand a bit about nuclear power, and my experiences on it were very positive with regards to safety, with regards to reliability, with regards to operational things. So anyway, I'm very, and I want everyone to understand this, I'm very pro nuclear power, biased by my experiences. Yeah. Okay, so here, I want you to talk about your experience because you share some common things in there.
Okay, well, it's a long experience. My entire career has been in nuclear. I graduated from Iowa State Mechanical Engineering, went into work for...
What year here? Oh,
2002.
2002, okay, so I would have been in industry after I graduated. I graduated in 97 from construction engineering, but I hadn't come back to teach yet. I would have been 2005.
Yeah, so 2003, I started with Knowles Atomic Power Laboratory, which at the time had a contract with Lockheed Martin. So my paychecks came from Lockheed Martin. It was the Navy nuclear sub program as a civilian that I worked at. So interestingly enough, my selective service number was removed from the hat, so I couldn't even get drafted.
Oh, yes, because you were in a higher need area.
That's right. Had a high security clearance. All the things that came with that. So,
here, let's talk about that just briefly. So understand what he did. The Navy hires civilian contractors to build everything. To build the whole boat. But they also, kind of like a general contractor would subcontract drywall, electric boat, buys reactors from Westinghouse, General Dynamics. Help me out here.
Well, I mean, the setup yes, those are true statements. The setup where we were was the Department of Energy, because it was a Department of Energy facility in upstate New York. That's where the two prototypes are, two existing prototypes, SAG and MARF. Were contracted. In New York, the civilian organization had the lead, and so there was a mirrored Navy organization. There was a commanding officer, ex-officer, executive officer, but you basically had two organizations that worked together. And we weren't building anything in upstate New York. We were simply training.
Right. And this is important. Part of so when you were hired, you went through Naval Nuclear Power.
I went through the exact same thing. I was down in South Carolina. I remember the first day I got saluted on a Saturday morning, real uncomfortable on how to respond to that.
Yeah.
There's only 5 civilians in the entire NPT2 site. So.
All right. So wait, you said you went...
I was down in South Carolina.
Oh, you went through prototype in South Carolina?
No, I went through...
Power
not a
school,
but I went through Power School.
Power School,
so,
okay.
Yep, I went through Power School in South Carolina.
Yeah.
Graduated from that. That was mind-opening compared to
let's talk about that.
Institutional university education. In a very positive way, in a balancing way.
So, fun fact, one of my students when I was teaching here, and this has been quite a while ago, he was, a great student, like 3.9 in mechanical engineering and president of his fraternity and the whole thing. And he came to talk to me about going Navy nuke officer. And I'm like, oh boy, and I'm like, all right. Well, let me tell you the things that your recruiter probably hasn't, so we had some long conversations. And one of the big ones was Power School. And prototype. Okay.
Yeah.
Power School. I'm like, you got to understand academically, this is going to be more challenging than anything you've ever done, including your engineering degree. And he's looking at me like, oh, come on. Not really. It can't be more than.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, more is tough, right? More is
It's different.
But it's different. It's just, I mean, if you get used to the same routine in the gym, the day you switch it up, it's not more difficult than your previous routine, but it is different, and you have vast muscle confusion, and it feels harder. It is the same way when you get there. It's like, you know, you're used to equations and calculators. Well, my perspective is coming from 23 years ago, but equations, calculators, if you were allowed to use calculators.
Right.
Never had a calc class in Iowa State that was ever allowed to use calculator, interestingly enough. Had to do everything by memory.
Did you really?
Yeah. Yeah, there's one professor in calculus. The first time I got there, we were not allowed to use calculators for Calc 1.
Really?
I loved it because I actually saw the equation and understood. He just couldn't give you complicated.
Couldn't give you the complicated
No, so
math.
instead of having two,
it was all theory
instead of having two, you had to recognize patterns, you had to memorize part. So instead of having 2 or 3 really hard equations and stuff that you would use a calculator, he gave you 100. So you had to know it and you had to move.
Oh my God.
But anyway, so I loved it so much because it was so challenging that I decided to
Who was that? What was his name?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember.
All right.
But in any case, Power School was very challenging in the fact that, you know, the theory was from the perspective of an operator.
Yes.
And so it's like...
Not the designer, the operator.
The operator. And so here's your equation. You had to know the equation, and the question would be, okay, you know, mass flow rate through the main condenser goes up. What happens to power?
Yep.
What happens to vacuum? They didn't ask what's the value. They just want to know up, down, same. And you had to understand, basically it's like arrow analysis, if you will. And so if you didn't understand the theory behind it, like the physical, what's happening, like close your eyes and you knew what's happening, then you weren't going to make it. And the sheer volume of information is what was so challenging.
So challenging. Okay, so the speed and the volume at which the information that they were shoving at you. See, this really helped me in college because I was a really good high school student, but never really applied myself. You know, nuclear power.
But look at you now.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. But you know, so I went to Naval Nuclear Power School, and all of a sudden, man, the volume of stuff coming at you and the speed and it was incredibly challenging. And and in the 90s, and this has changed now, but in the 90s, the Navy's theory was, let's put a bunch of people through the program, and knowing that a bunch of them are going to fail out, and that's okay. We'll just keep pushing more people through. You know, it was a mass thing. So people failed out just every week, you know, fail. And there was a lot of stress on you to get through it, because the jobs they gave you for enlisted guys that failed out of pirate school, they were not the good jobs.
Yeah.
You know?
But at the end of the day, I mean, they demanded a lot because they expected a lot. And I mean, I just remember
you had
one
to
day,
do a lot.
Well, I was sitting in, this is at the prototype, but I'm sitting in maneuvering, you know, engineering officer of the watch, and we don't need to go into all of that, but I'm looking and I'm like, I was 24.
Yeah.
The reactor operator was 20.
The
19. Throttleman and the electrical operator were 19 years old.
Right.
And you're operating a real nuclear reactor.
Yes.
In a way that we don't operate any commercial reactors, right? I mean, it's a Ferrari compared to a semi.
Yeah.
And what you did with that plant while we were running drills, while we were training, while we were doing all of that. And so you absolutely had to know your stuff.
Believe it or not, at Prototype,
it was awesome.
It was awesome. I remember being at the nuclear power plant panel at 19 years old. I was almost to turn 20, but I was still in my teens operating a nuclear reactor. And I remember looking at the power plant, you know, got control rods, pumps, you know, the whole thing. And I'm like, how is it fair I can't drink a beer? you know, this is a problem I had. But anyway, okay. But yeah, I was 19 the first time I sat. I sat just before my 20th birthday. I was operating a nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
God, that was, and to get to that point, you know, there's so much stress and learning, and you had to prove you knew your stuff. I mean, it was a lot to get that point. So, funny thing, at the end of, and you'll appreciate this since you worked for Capel, at the end of my undergraduate degree, somehow Bettis got my resume. And I was interviewing with, you know, design firms and stuff, and Westinghouse Bettis called me up, and they said, hey, pulled your resume from Iowa State Engineering Services. Would you like to interview for a job as a civilian? You know, you'd have to go, you know, and I'm like, okay, hold on. I said, civilian instructor at Prototype, and I have to go through the officer side of things, right? Like, yes, you would. You'd have to go through that. But, you know, on and on, you know, they were like playing it up. And I said, I remember thinking, there is no way in hell I could walk through the gates of power school again.
And do another round.
I could not. Sure. I told them. I said.
Now that you know what you're getting into.
Oh God! Now that I know, yeah. And I was like, no. And don't you want to know what it pays? And I said, you don't have that kind of money to make me do that over again. Only worse. I was like, hell no. You know, I was like.
That's okay. We all get that. We all cross that opportunity that we don't want.
Yeah.
That is, so.
Yeah. No, it was tempting for like a minute. And then I came to my senses.
No, but that pipeline's still great. And that pipeline has absolutely supported our commercial nuclear fleet, the existing fleet.
That is absolutely true.
It's a small world. There's so many people that I went to power school with, that worked with, that, you know, even just, you know, it's the first day I've met you, and we've got a very similar, you know, history. And there's just that connection there, you know. And
I bet you. So guys that I would have went through power school would have been about 10 to 13 years when you went through. Mm-hmm. I bet you guys I served with as students were probably, you know, instructors there. Sure. You know, you know, if we could compare names, I'm sure, because like you said, it is a small world.
But that would require me remembering names.
Yeah, me too. I don't.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a minute. It's been it's been even more minutes since I've been through. So, all right. So this is incredibly important. So we get your background kind of in the same pipeline I do, and then.
Yeah, and after a few years, I started dating my current wife. And we both went to Iowa State. She was in Iowa, and so once.
I'm sorry.
No,
I'm kidding.
No, I was good. I was in upstate New York. Upstate New York was beautiful. It was great.
Yeah.
I wanted to raise a family back in the Midwest.
Yeah.
So we never dated in. Did I say my current wife? She's my only wife.
Okay. Yeah. No, I wasn't gonna pry. I wasn't gonna pry.
I don't know why I said it like that. But in any case, we did not date in college, and we started dating when I was in upstate New York doing the nuclear sub stuff.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And
wow, bad time to start.
Yeah, well, you know, it's God's time, not mine. I don't get to pick
all
it.
true.
And so I kind of rolled with it and ended up getting a job, decided to, you know, I was on shift, rotating shift, doing all of that. I'm like, hey, I've got an opportunity to go to the commercial side, and I got an instructor job at the Quad Cities generating station outside of Cordova, Illinois, which is just on the Mississippi River, you know, not far from Davenport, just straight north. Port Byron on the Illinois side. And I entered doing, my initial job was training licensed operators.
Yeah.
To both get a nuclear or a licensed reactor operator, senior reactor operator license, along with equipment operators. Did that for a few years, then went into the engineering side. And I'm like, well, if I ever get out of this nuclear thing, I need to do some kind of engineering.
Yeah, right.
So I went to the nuclear, or I'm sorry, I went to the kind of our primary systems, but I managed some of our power plant systems in engineering, and then went over to operations, was in management. And when I left there, I was in charge of all site operations. So all the operators reported to me.
Oh, wow.
In charge of the safe operation of both units. And then I did a few years with corporate, where I had a small team of experts, oversight responsibilities for our plants in New York and Maryland, and then across the fleet.
Oh, wow.
And I transitioned to my current role in 2023. So,
well, that's pretty awesome.
All nuclear stuff. And
nuclear stuff.
Never planned it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I got to ask a question. Prototype, right? And how was describe to Calvin and any student to be watching, your final board interview. How was your final board? Here, okay, so let me set this up a little bit. So Calvin, at the end of a year, probably by the time you do prototype and you do power school, you know, he's been in hardcore training for over a year.
Yep.
All right. And to graduate, what you need to do is you have to do your final, what we call a final oral board. You walk into a room, or at least when I did it, and there will be an expert in each area. And by an expert in mechanical, in electrical, in reactor operation, and then probably an engineering officer of the watch, probably, like a plant manager kind of thing, all with at least 10 years, maybe 15, maybe 20 years of experience. And you go into this room and you got a chalkboard and books in front of you. And they pepper the candidate with questions for 2 hours?
Yeah. That's I don't know. I blocked that.
I know. I did too. I couldn't even tell you. All I know is I walked into this room, picked up a piece of chalk, stood in front of the board, and before anyone even asked me a question, my whole uniform was wet with sweat.
Yeah.
I was so nervous.
No, it was very effective. It was a 3-part, to get your final qualification, it was 3 parts. You had a written exam, you had a practical.
An 8-hour exam, by the way.
Meaning you needed to be evaluated on watch, working with real equipment, as well as in the simulator under accident and casualty scenarios.
Simulator?
Yeah,
have
we
simulators?
had simulators.
Oh, they didn't have simulators when I was.
Okay, yeah. Nope, they also had moved from chalkboards to whiteboards.
Whoa, stop.
But they still had paper and pens and books. Nobody had cell phones. Well, not everybody had them. But in any case, but then the last one was the oral board, and it's a super effective strategy. I used it for studying after that, no matter what. But if you really want to know what you know and can recall, give yourself whether it's a piece of chalk or a marker, go up to a whiteboard and write down every single thing you think you know about a certain subject, and then go and pull the books and see where you're wrong. And that's how I'd study, because
that's the way you're tested.
And maybe it's the same as defending a dissertation. I don't know, but the point is you have a panel and you have no idea what they're going to ask you, and everything you've studied for the last 12 months is up for grabs, and you have to walk out there convincing them that you know what you're doing, and you often have to show it with a marker and a whiteboard.
Right.
So.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would highly encourage it for your curriculum with your students.
Actually, I do something
and then you
similar.
Can say it's Calvin's fault because he brought me here.
That's true, but Calvin may have to go through it. See, so I'm the technical advisor for a capstone class in mechanical, and I make the students come into my office and defend their senior design project.
Oh, that's great.
Right. So they got a book, and I say, you can have anything you want. You can put in your book, but you can't use anything else that's not in that book. And so they do all their calculations for a building. Okay, not a reactor plant, but a building. And I'm like, okay, where'd you get this? Where'd you get this? Where'd you get this? How'd you get this number? Where'd you get this constant from? What reference? What code? What standard did you use? And so I make them defend it, and it's nothing like the prototype board, but there's no way to simulate that.
Well, if you did that, then you wouldn't have very many students. But
that's a good point.
But your point's the same, and that is you're getting into their thought process, you're uncovering assumptions, and you're really trying to make them think. And you're going to have to do that your whole entire career. I mean, I walk into a board of directors, or I walk into even my boss's office, and I've got a proposal that I think I've thought through critically, and I haven't, right? I haven't thought through various aspects, and that's the whole thing, is we're working together to kind of punch holes through this idea so that it can be better in the end. And
wait a minute. Are you saying that communication skills are an important skill for an engineer to have?
Yeah.
No, wait, Calvin, can you believe this?
I can't believe it.
You haven't
be
heard,
able to.
I was going to say.
Brad says that in class a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not, in the interest of full disclosure, I did not pay him to say that. All right. Anyway, but yeah, I put my students on the spot a lot in class. Ask questions in class, because what I tell them is, mistakes made in class are free. They're cheap.
Yeah. Well, they don't hurt anybody.
They don't hurt anybody. Usually, but usually not. So, that's a good time to learn. But anyway, keep going. All right.
I don't know. I thought it was the end of my.
Oh no. Well, hold on. So we need.
And now I'm here.
And now you're here.
Yep.
But you need to describe what you do now.
Okay.
All right. So that, because ultimately, I've got a bunch of industry questions for you. But go ahead.
So what I do now is I work for the utility. It's a regulated utility out west, and I'm in a group that develops resources. So new power plants, new solar plants, whatever, new wind potentially. But also we are the front-facing organization to our large load customers, and that was a recent change we made about a year ago. And so what it really allows us to do is we've got, data centers, for example. A lots of requests out there related to power needs. Here's what we want. And we also develop the resources and bring the energy. And then you've got the transmission piece in the middle, which is a different group. And so I play in that pool.
Okay.
And,
on the supply side.
On the resource supply side. Okay. And primarily I manage all of our efforts, not just with nuclear, but I'll use the term in commercial space. And so contracts, regulatory filings, like the entire effort it takes for the organization to move something forward is not just building something. It's a tremendous amount of paperwork on the front end and getting the entire organization aligned. And so I manage all of that. Sometimes I'm kind of herding cats, at the same time.
Well, there's so many competing priorities in that list you just gave.
Oh yeah.
So
that's the space I live in.
Okay.
One person was like, "So you're trying to get power to data centers is basically what you do?" I'm like, yeah, I guess so.
Well, that's a fascinating question.
I mean, nuclear is the big component, but I don't just do nuclear.
Well, so we get contractors coming in to talk to our students all the time. Here last year, Cherney Mechanical, they're Kiewit, industrial.
Sure.
All right, so they're the wholly owned mechanical contractor by Kiewit.
Okay.
All right. So he was in, and he used to teach here at Iowa State, and then he got hired away, and he's working for Cherney, and he's one of their recruiters, but he's out an engineer, Anyway, he was talking to our mechanical student group about this data center that they were building in Houston, like $5 billion worth of data center. And I asked, hey, what's the peak load for that? And he told me, and I'll be honest, I don't even remember what it was, but it was so monstrous. I was like, no, come on. He's like, yeah, it's probably going to use, so many megawatts of power. Is 5? Would that be reasonable?
No, that's way too small.
Yeah, that's what
most data center requests are going to start at 100.
Yeah, it's 500.
But
that's
it'll
what
go
it was.
up from there.
It was 500.
500 megawatts.
500 meg, and I was like,
that's a tremendous amount of energy.
Well, it was one of the largest data centers currently being built, I think he said.
Yeah, that would be a normal number now.
Exactly, but this was a year ago.
For a request, yeah.
Yeah, this is a year ago. And I said, where are you getting that much power from? I'm like, this does not make any sense to me. And it's so funny. He had the most textbook contractor answer everywhere. He's like, I don't know. That's not our division.
Yeah.
Talk to the industrial. Yeah. They're the ones that build power plants. We build data centers, And I'm like, okay, but it has to come from somewhere,
right.
I mean, here, and this is how I would like you, if you don't mind, and once again, all opinion and all speculation, but what I tell my students is and I give them a very, very, very what I would call Reader's Digest version. Because my class is not on power. It's on air conditioning and heating and stuff like that, which you can't separate that from energy. And the more you understand about energy, I think the more well-versed you will be as a contractor of any type, mechanical, electrical, general contractor, whatever it is. And the short version that I give them in my class is that our grid does not have extra capacity.
No. What extra there was gobbled up pretty quick.
Yeah.
By a couple contracts with hyperscalers and data centers. And then now everything's constrained.
There, thank you. Talk to me about, so all I hear about is all this data center construction, but I don't hear enough about power plant construction. Is it just because that part's quieter, or is it not going on? I mean, what's going on here?
Well, if you're just watching the headlines, it's really hard to tell the difference between what's real and what's not. And how you really figure it out is you got to follow the money.
There it is. Okay.
You got to follow the money, right? And so when you see memorandums of understanding, letters of intent, you see, deals. We agree to agree someday. It may not be an actual, like if you're the community, you're not going to see anything happening, right?
Right.
Your outdoor or outside your door. The data. Again, these are my opinions and kind of informed by experience and reading this stuff. But it's become highly speculative, meaning the same companies, the same data centers that are asking for power in the West are asking for power in the South, and then they're asking for power in the Northeast. And so they're they're trying to find the cheapest power at a given tariff rate that a utility can provide on the time scale that's way faster than what can be done. And so you don't really know what's real and what's not real. And if you don't know if someone's going to show up, it makes it really hard to convince your investor. Like I work for an investor-owned utility. There's other forms out there, but a lot of them are investor-owned utilities. It makes it hard to spend the infrastructure money when you're talking not M, you're talking B as in billions, right? Yeah. If you don't have commitment on the other side. And so even if a data center is being built, that doesn't mean that they have power yet. It doesn't mean they've got power on the timeline. It just depends on the project.
This is why, or personal speculation, but I know I'm right on some of this. If we rewind the clock, let's go back to early 2000s. Okay. Well, 2000 and 2005. I'm doing energy studies on buildings in Des Moines, and downtown Des Moines, a large general service, Mid-America Energy, let's say we had a 500,000 square foot office building. You could get a rate structure from Mid-America Energy, and it would have been about a penny a kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that's 2000 up to maybe 2005. All right. You're not getting it for a penny a kilowatt hour anymore. I mean, what's happened is, look at Iowa, central Iowa, kind of having an explosion of data centers because I think someone from Silicon Valley finally realized, hey, did you know the internet is in Iowa now? And they've got cheap electricity. Let's build a data center. And then let's build another one. And then let's build another one. But let's not tell anyone, oh, yeah, like we're in Iowa. No one Iowans would notice if $1 billion worth of construction happens in Altoona. Right. But anyway, so we've got Facebook and Microsoft and on and on and on and on in central Iowa because we had a plentiful of cheap electricity. And the internet finally came to Iowa. And now that cheap electricity is gone.
Yeah, everything's constrained. Transmission is transmission can kill a project. So it's not just the generation, it's the transmission alone.
Yeah. Which is even harder to build than generation, I would think.
Well, it could take 6-7 years to build. You may have to build a brand new 88-mile transmission line, which means you have to do all the permitting for it, just to get power from one area to another. And so transmission is a huge challenge. The generation itself is a huge challenge. Even if you wanted to build a natural gas plant tomorrow, your 230 kV breakers are 3-year lead times for procurement. Your turbines,
are they really?
Your turbines are 5 or 6 years now because, again, you get get this, hey, we need new power, and we realize that renewables is not, can't be the only piece of the equation, and so
one of my buddies
challenge.
One of my buddies that's in the Navy with, he sells turbines for Toshiba.
Oh,
I think he's killing it.
Yeah. Well,
if he can sell it, because there's, like you said, there's a couple year lead time.
Right.
I think he just laughs at people a lot. Hey, can we get a new turbine?
Yeah. So, there's so much to talk about, but when you look at my friend and I were having this conversation the other day, and I think it's of value. The organized utility, like think about the electrification of rural America, which most people aren't even that familiar with. Maybe certainly not college students.
I live it. I am.
Right? But the electrification of rural America, so it did not make the balance sheet work from an economics perspective. You say, how much would it cost for me to run this power line out to Farmer Joe's farm, who's 7 miles out from the nearest power line, right? It didn't.
Right.
And so the way the utility worked, the regulated utility work is the shared cost piece. It's like, hey, if we will go and do that, and we'll just spread the cost to everyone, and it's such a small part of the whole that it no longer is. It's not an issue. You can't do that with a data center.
No.
It took our, and this is not just our utility, but across the United States, if you look at their integrated resource planning, it took them 100 years to double in size. And their request would require them to double in size in less than 10. You can't do that.
You can't do that.
You physically can't do that. Like, even if you wanted to, you can't.
Even with all the money in the world, you can't do it.
And the challenge is what the large industrial users, and now it's the data centers, they're used to certain prices.
Yeah.
But those prices were based on slow electrification growth. And so if you go with the same model, which is we're going to spread the costs around, well, when you had an infinitesimal addition with that just, electrifying rural, rural farm, and now you're adding 5% of your entire load in one shot, that would drive everybody's costs up. And so a lot of states have instituted laws that say the utility cannot socialize the costs of the data centers on the rest of the customers, because those costs are already going up just due to inflation, et cetera. And so now you're paying your way. And when you pay your way, that's really expensive because you're a really large load. And that's when you get into a lot of the commercial challenges that have nothing to do with technology and everything to do with financial security and backing and capital and all of
this
that. Brings
me to a question. That Jenny Baker, she teaches the electrical classes, and we were in the design world together. So I was looking, I just happened to, like in my LinkedIn feed, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, and you may not know anything about this at all, but have you seen the Westinghouse, the small, like the micro,
the eVinci?
Yeah, yes.
The microreactors.
The microreactors. I saw that, and I was talking to Jenny, and I'm like, this has got to be for data centers. It's got to be. Who builds such a small reactor? So like it's what, 1 megawatt?
It's one. Yeah, most of the microreactors are on 1 megawatt.
1 meg, and so I was thinking, I'm like, oh, this makes perfect sense. A nuclear reactor that can literally fit on the back of a semi truck. Drop it into place and drop as many of them as you need for your data center. It's just a theory I have. I don't know if that's the truth.
Let me give you another thing to think about as you're developing your theories. And normally you scale up for economics,
right?
Not down.
Well, okay, that's fair. That's a good point.
So although it may physically look like it, what are the economics around? And I have no idea.
I don't either.
But if a 1,400 megawatt reactor like Vogtle 3 and 4 is too expensive for customers, what do you think a 1 megawatt one is going to be like?
Well,
unless we can, make a whole bunch and drive the cost curve, all that. But you got to get through that hump, through that curve. You need customers to go and do that. Yes. Or a government that's wanting to back it, which is why we're seeing some progress in state-owned governments across the world. Not necessarily the United States.
Yeah.
But normally you scale up. Now versus down for economics. Now the benefit of scaling down is the initial price tag is much smaller, and that can help people get on the.
Well, see, the only reason why I thought this would work, like you said, it'd be much more economic to scale up. But the only reason I thought this could work is through, I'm going to call it the flat screen TV economic theorem. Okay.
Did you just make that up?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I absolutely made this up.
I don't remember being taught that.
Yeah.
Calvin.
Okay. So let me explain this. So Calvin, you would not remember this, but I remember the first time I saw a flat screen TV.
Was it plasma?
Yeah, probably.
Probably weighed 50 pounds.
Yeah. But it was flat. And I looked at it and I'm like, it was an advertisement. I was like, oh my God, that would fit on a wall, because I'm growing up with TVs. Calvin, I don't know. Do you remember this TVs being like 2 feet deep, 3 feet deep?
Yeah.
Like your grandparents might have had one sitting on a coffee table that represented an OSHA violation, because if it fell on a kid, it'd kill it.
We had a couple of those in the house growing up. We had like the tube style, just the big box. But then I was astounded to see like the 55-inch. It was a giant thing that would sit in our living room and just had everything with it. I was like, what in the world?
Well, so the first time I saw a flat screen, I think it was late 90s, early 2000s, something like that. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. That could fit on my wall. And then the price tag on that thing was like $11,000, for like a 40-inch, at that time it wouldn't have even been true high def. It would have been, like standard definition. I'm like, $11,000. I'm like, it ain't fitting on my wall. Maybe Tom Brady's wall, but not my wall, and now I bought the same TV for my daughter's bedroom for like $100. So they can watch Backyardigans and stuff on it, and Disney movies.
Yep.
And the point is that the one I just bought has much better resolution. It can hook to the internet. It can do all these things, and it does it for like $128. And my point is, I thought my theory would be that's where these small modular reactors were going the way of mass production and kind of how we used to do the same thing on boilers to heat buildings. They'd be one or maybe two of these huge cast iron monsters that you put in the basement and you built the building around.
Right.
Today, a boiler for heating a building is like a 3-foot square box that can fit through a door with a hand truck. But you need a whole bunch of them. So that's kind of
there's trade-offs.
Yeah.
From an economics perspective, when you look at Vogtle 3 and 4, and any nuclear construction build, it's a monstrous civil project.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Could you talk a little bit about when you're saying Vogtle 3 and 4, odds are our students don't have any knowledge of what that is.
The last two plants, we have not built nuclear plants in a very, very long time.
Right.
40 years.
Yeah.
With the exception of really two, which is Vogtle 3 and 4. They're Southern Nuclear's units. They're down in Georgia. Mm-hmm. They're both AP1000 Westinghouse technology, the same large ones that are being built across like in China as well.
Yeah.
But 1,400 megawatts each. They're just huge. They've got these huge cooling towers. They're really cool. Over time, there's a long storied history of it. Anyone can get on the internet and look at the stories and stuff. But those were huge, and they're huge civil. It has nothing to do with nuclear and everything to do with the large civil project. And how do you control costs? How do you control time? You throw the safety-related aspect in on it. How do you control all the material that's coming? The workforce up to the peak was 6,000 people a day.
A day.
Can you imagine managing 6,000 people a day?
On a nuclear site with the quality control necessary?
Yes.
No, I can't.
So that's where the challenges come from. And then if you're not used to it, you're not proficient at it, you don't have the right tools or the tools aren't to manage it, then it can be very, very challenging. However, if you continue to build them, like South Korea, excellent builders, you continue to work that cost curve down. You continue to do that. Yeah. With the small modular reactors and the micro reactors, you can break into some, even though maybe the economics are not there, maybe it's easier to build, in a factory setting and then just assemble. And so your quality control goes up.
That's what I was, that's exactly
you can also site them closer to certain areas based on the siting requirements versus the large ones. And so it really, at the end of the day, it comes down to each specific project. Who's before you pick the technology, before you pick the site, who's really benefiting from the project, are they willing to pay for that? And then who's the ultimate off-taker payer? And you got to answer those three questions first for any project, and it could just look different. So a microreactor may look economic in remote Alaska because they're burning oil still, right?
Good point.
Or maybe it's worth a hyperscaler. It's worth it for them for backup energy. Like they need that 5 nines or 6 nines of reliability that they talk about. And so you need, so you're willing to pay for it. So it all just it just depends. What's very promising though is there's a huge variety of technologies that are both available and being developed. There's a lot of, and I'll use a pun, a ton of energy behind nuclear in general. It's an awesome time to get involved in the workforce, whether you're construction, mechanical, civil. We need to build infrastructure, and that is steel and concrete and people.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no substitute that. I mean, you're absolutely right. Well, but here's the thing, is that because it's been, if we look at the last 40 years and you're saying, in the last 40 years we've built 4 plants.
2.
Oh, 2. I'm sorry. 2. Okay.
Vogtle 3 and 4. Vogtle 1 and 2 were built earlier than.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then it's
worse.
Were already there. It's even worse. So in the last 40 years, we've built 2 nuclear power plants in the United States. That's not awesome with regards to institutional knowledge.
No.
I was at one of our bigger mechanical contractors. We were talking this subject, because they're doing crazy amounts of prefabrication, and they're shipping cooling systems to data centers all over the country. They're one of the biggest prefabricators in the country now, and they're here in Iowa. I was like, hey, what if someone would knock on your door asking for, similar stuff, but not for cooling, more for nuclear power stuff? And they're like, we don't have nuclear qualified anybody, which
you may not need to have. It depends on where it is.
Well, that's true. It depends on which part of the project we're talking about. Yep. But how many contractors are left in the country that still have an N stamp?
I think there's a lot because you have you have an existing fleet.
Well, okay, true
Here's
enough.
what you don't have. You don't have 6,000 trades
That's
who
right.
know how to weld safety-related welds, who know how to pour a continuous pour that meets safety-related requirements for the foundation of the reactor.
Yeah.
You know, much less the managers and the supervisors who know how to manage all that work and stay on time and on budget. Like it's the whole thing. It's the whole project. And so, but I do believe that there maybe not as many as there were 20 years ago, but the existing fleet has always been and is the priority for the nuclear industry, because if you don't have the existing fleet, you can't have a new fleet.
No.
And that being said, though, there's only so many workers in the existing fleet. And if we're doubling our capacity for nuclear generation, as some people say we need to, in the next 20 years, where are you going to get the people?
Do you think that's realistic? Because I've heard this multiple times in the past 20 years. Not even kidding. You know, I keep hearing this, there's going to be a resurgence of nuclear. There's going to be a resurgence of nuclear. And it still hasn't happened.
Yeah. I think it's hard to go from paper to reality.
Yeah.
I think you see nothing happen until one day everything's happening.
Well,
because,
okay.
I mean, just look at even the project in Wyoming. For 2 to 3 years, nothing's happening on the ground because all this paperwork is being done. You have environmental reviews that are required. You know, per federal policy, you're getting approvals through the state. You're getting industrial zoning. You're assessing water quality. You have to show, especially in the West, like it's the water. You brought up water. Water's precious in the West, and
power plants are water hogs,
and they can be absolutely. And so you have to get rights for that water, and you have to prove that you can run this plant sustainably, you know, under normalized and worst case conditions. And so all of that gets figured out before you really try to start building.
Yeah, before
anything.
you turn a single shovel of dirt, you gotta. I mean, gosh.
But it can be very it can be discouraging sometimes because it looks like nothing's happening.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that nothing's happening. However, at the end of the day, you know, you can only build so fast.
Yeah.
And so that will be the real limiter. It'll be the workforce and it'll be the supply chain.
Well, okay, 100% agree. In my classes, all right, I think sometimes students think I'm anti-wind or anti-solar. I'm not, all right, and I want this to be clear.
Especially in Iowa.
Well, but here's the thing. I am pro-power.
Yeah.
You know, but here's what I am anti. I'm anti-believing that wind and solar are going to solve our problems.
Yeah.
Because they can't. I just don't think that they can generate the capacity. I'm all for them as a supplement, as a additional way, as a way to kind of decentralize the grid, perhaps. You know, a building has their own solar. Great. They're not taking as much demand off the grid. I think that's awesome. But I also try to be more realistic about we have an insatiable demand for power. It can't be met with solar and wind, in my personal opinion.
No, I think there's some equations that could back that up.
Yeah.
My previous company, the CEO said in front of Congress, I think this was last year, and I love this quote, but he's like, you can't run a full-time economy on part-time power.
Yeah, exactly.
And from a physics perspective, you know, you do have real and reactive load. You cannot, the way the grid is designed, and it looks infinite to, you know, loads and to generators, but you cannot, it's not just the capacity. You know, we use the term firm power. You have to have inertia. Like you can't just have this real power, this electricity flow. You have to have inertia. You have to have these big machines that are spinning that can hold up when everybody in Ames turns on their air conditioner all at the same time and they crank it up.
Yeah.
You know, that pulls
8 a.m.
down
Monday
the system.
morning.
It pulls the voltage down on the system. So even if you have enough electricity, you still need these big machines that help prop everything up.
Yep.
And those come from thermal units. They come or hydroelectric, and you can't expand any more hydroelectric. We can't just make new rivers. So we can keep them going, but that's where your large generators
as long as we have water.
Batteries are, you know, coming in. It's a very attractive solution, but it's only a 4-hour solution.
Yeah, that's the price.
And it's not it's a short-term again, at the end of the day,
it's a Band-Aid. Batteries are a Band-Aid.
Well, it's not a Band-Aid, but it's a short-term solution. It's just one piece of the puzzle. The all of the above approach is absolutely the best way.
Yes,
because
all of the above.
If you have all nuclear plants and one major thing happens, and then all of a sudden now you're in trouble. If you've got all wind, so you need that variety, you need that diversity, and you can do it where they all support each other.
Well, you can as long as our regulatory agencies are thinking all types.
Yeah.
I mean, we are very, very, very,
so you
very...
want to talk politics?
No, I don't. I really don't. But here and in class, I kind of... I try to stay out of it, but you can't have a discussion on energy without politics.
Well, just in the past, I mean, there's the tax incentive programs, the policy, the energy policies of the country, the energy policy of the state absolutely flow down to the economics, based on the companies. And there is a real impact there.
There is a real impact, and sometimes that impact is stupid.
Yeah, if you want to talk about, where you can talk about regulatory and not necessarily get tied into the politics is, let's just say you have, I don't know, $10 billion.
Okay, let's say I did. Let's like your thinking.
You got an amazing annual appraisal or a review this year.
I'm buying Maui.
Congratulations, Professor.
I got a raise.
Yep, you've got $10 billion.
Okay, that's the idea that we're getting a raise is as speculative as me having $10 billion.
So you live in Iowa, or we'll just say you live in whatever state we want to make up.
Yeah.
And you want to invest half of that, $5 billion into infrastructure, and you're willing to be patient. Your patient capital, it's like, hey, I've been preaching energy from the start. If I want to invest in infrastructure, I have to wait the 7-8 years for it to be built, and I have to wait for the 40 years to get everything back. But I'm cool with that because that's how you want to deal with your money. Well, it's then you're
50s.
Passing it down to the next generation.
Passing it to my grandkids.
So it's paid. But the point is you're going to send the patient capital. If the regulatory environment that you're going to invest that in, whether it's at the federal or the state level, is unpredictable.
Yeah.
If you've spent 70% of that $5 billion and the rug gets yanked out from underneath you, a moratorium gets put on the new nuclear plant that you're building, the tax incentives that made this whole thing to work to begin with get yanked out and said, nope, they're not there. If the politicians in that area decide they don't want your project when you're 6 years in and $3.5 billion spent.
Yeah.
Would you, if you know that that's a possibility, how willing would you be to put that $5 billion down?
Yeah, absolutely not.
It's enough to make you at least pause. Right? And so that's really when we want to talk, we can talk about the policy changes from administration to administration. However,
the policy changes the problem.
Go local or go to the state. What the investors need, what the utilities need is predictability in the regulatory space. And as long as there's predictability, then they can work through it. It's when there's unpredictability that makes it really challenging to invest.
I would agree. And that is a major barrier. But here's the thing is that I personally believe that we've been kicking this can down the street, too long. Everybody's on board for the construction. Everybody's on board for data centers.
They're on board for people doing it, but they don't want to pay for it.
There it is. There it is. Or they don't want to take the risk. Which I understand.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is the solar and wind is, especially solar, and the solar plus battery is kind of the new. It's really cheap. It's inexpensive. And how do you compare a solar plus a battery project that is coming in at, say, I don't know, $1,900 a kilowatt in construction, overnight construction costs that lasts for 15 years, and it's not any different than the battery. It starts at 100% and it's down to 82% capacity by the end of that 15 years. Yeah. And a nuclear plant, which is going to run for 100 years.
Right.
Which is 5 times the cost.
Yeah.
So where's the business? How do you do those business cases, right? You've got an asset that's going to be running for 100 years versus this one that's way cheaper. It's just challenging. And so you got to have the right partners. You got to have the right visionary. You got to have the right support at both the state and local and the federal level. And you've got to have the right investors and the right folks that are willing to make that sacrifice. Not the sacrifice, willing to make that investment up front, knowing that this is a multi-generational investment.
Yeah. Well, those are not easy problems to fix.
No, but
that's all right.
We're working on them.
No, I was going to say.
It may not look like it, but we're working on them.
Oh, I was going to say we're going to dump it on Calvin's generation.
we're going to try not to dump it, but he's going to be heavily involved. We'll just say that.
Okay, so Calvin, your generation has a stake in this mess and in solving it. We've been talking a long time here, so we need to get your questions in here. You got to represent the younger questions. All right.
Yeah. So what I was thinking, the whole way through, Jeremy's had a lot of different roles. He started at, in the Navy or at Iowa State, and then made his way as a civilian, working for the Lockheed Martin in the Navy, and then, joining the commercial and everything. Just how'd you find your way? Like the pathfinding,
Oh yeah. How did you get that?
My Pathfinder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question. I've always.
How did Capel snatch you out of the Midwest, Iowa State mechanical engineering? I know how they found me because I had, the resume that practically,
Well, the specific answer to that is when I was graduating, so it was right after 9/11.
Yeah.
We went from everyone I knew had 10 interviews, 3 job offers, to if you had 2 interviews, you were really happy, because even a year after 9/11, things were very, very tight. Yeah. I did a co-op, not an internship, a co-op. I took a semester off, did a cooperative with Cargill down at the corn milling plant in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm like, I ground corn my entire life. I grew up on a hog farm in Northeast Iowa. So I definitely can do that.
You understood that.
I learned a lot. I learned a lot at that corn, it was not just a corn plant, but
Cargill
processing, right? The syrups and the oils and everything. But what I really wanted to do was get involved with like fighter jets, effectively. So I wanted to go work for Boeing. Lockheed Martin put me on the Joint Strike Fighter. Was a new fighter jet that was being designed at the time. I wanted to get in defense, and so I was pushing hard for interviews. I had an interview with Lockheed Martin for their Fort Worth office to work on some fighter jet stuff, along with like Rolls-Royce and others. And long story short is I did get a job offer from Lockheed Martin, but it was not for
fighter
planes.
Jets.
It was for subs. And I remember thinking, like,
end of the extreme.
So here I am in my senior year, my last semester, and I've got 2 offers in hand. One's to go, work to grind corn, and fantastic company, Cargill, name brand company from, with Iowa and the Midwest, or go do nuclear subs. And so I remember talking to my friend Lindsay from my hometown, and she's like, "Well, why do you want to work on Joint Strike Fighters?" I said, "Well, defense." And she's like, "Well, what is a sub?" Oh, good point. So I'm like, you know what? I'll just go try it. So I said yes, and that put me on the path to that. And so for me, I guess, I don't know. Looking back, I had no intention on ever being in nuclear. It's been super challenging. I've learned so much. Some days I'm kind of my wife would tell you this, but God just opens one door for me. Like I'm either in the hallway or the one door opens. And so I take comfort in that. And so when there's been a change in direction or an unanticipated, job offering or position offering even, I worked 17 years for my previous company, which was fantastic. And that's a really long time to work for a company. And I value that. And so now I've gotten to definitely get into a new space and learn new things. But I went with where I thought was the best decision at the time with what I was offered and made the best of it. And kind of a boring story, I guess.
Well, no, here, I'm going to throw something else out there, is that in my career, sometimes when I've took a job that was a little bit on the unusual side, outside of the norm, not what everybody's doing, and you kind of do something a little bit different. It seems like those types of decisions frequently, not always, but frequently pay off well. Okay? So doing something a little unusual or finding that is not a bad thing. I think it's actually usually career enhancers.
Yeah.
But that's, very personal perspective, I guess.
Yeah.
I think Calvin, for someone your age, it's I would always recommend explore all the opportunities. Like you're walking around. Did you see these guys at the career fair?
No.
Oh, no. Oh.
Well, Lockheed Martin was at the career fair, but Capel was not.
Well,
Knowles Power Laboratory. And the reality was even though Lockheed Martin had the contract, Knowles Atomic Power Laboratory did all the work.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
My paycheck came from Lockheed Martin, and I even got a little pin to put on my shirt one day. But I work for Capel.
Capel. Okay.
And they just were using, their HR related. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, I think I'm just trying to remember when I was a senior in college, I just remember putting a lot of pressure on myself to go get that dream job. And for me, the dream job was not about the money, it was about the mission. And so I remember looking at a lot of other opportunities and be like, why I don't want to go build doors. I don't want to go do, whatever. And the agricultural industry I was very familiar with. And so even a great job in a company like Cargill didn't fulfill that mission piece, but defense did. And so, but now looking back though, I think what I'd tell myself is it's at the end of the day, you're going to have a few cards that you're dealt. It's not life or death on what you choose. You may find out you chose well. You may find out that, this is only going to be for a few years and then I'm going to have some other pathway. Like it's not a straight line from A to B and you don't even know where B is.
Oh yeah.
Much less a straight line. And so just be flexible. I've always tried to keep the attitude of don't really close any doors for any reason. Make sure you put yourself in a learning situation. If you have a family, you got to do what's best for the family as well. Yep. You can't take undue risks that way. But it's not the last decision you're ever going to make. I certainly think in our day and age, there's a lot more fluidity with the workforce and, their ability to move from a company to a company and those types of things as well. And so, but the nuclear was what I was put on, and now that's what I know. And so that's what I stick with. And, but you can, whatever field you're in, you can find lots of variety in. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that's great. And, out in the hallway before we started, you said, I'm in school every day and you're always learning. And like you said, you were targeting the mission. And I think, that's really cool to hear as a student because you want to go after something that you're passionate about and that you're excited to do. And, all our teachers push us to do that and to try new things, try different classes and, give it our all in everything we do to figure out what we're excited about. So that's cool to hear that. You were after the mission, and that's really neat.
Yep.
All right. Other questions though, like power wise or industry wise or whatever.
I don't know if I have anything specifically. I thought it was interesting. How was the transition from, working as a contractor to the Navy and switching to that commercial side of things? Like what was that transition within the industry? When you're trying something new, what's that like?
Well, I mean, I was nervous. For one thing, I was 26, and my job was to teach people that were doing their jobs for 30 years and plus.
That would be tough.
So you walk in as an instructor, you're 26 years old. I spent a year getting certified as a senior reactor operator, and now you have to go teach both new people and folks that already knew your job. So I was really nervous. But I just played the only card I could, which was do the best you can and say when you don't know what things are and, work the relationship pieces because at the end of the day, we're all just people sitting in a room trying to do a good job. And that worked really, really well for me. But that was a challenge because where I came from was like this small fraternity of Navy and civilian that all went through together.
Yeah, they had this common...
Right? So we're all in the trench together and you get that common kind of camaraderie. But that wasn't the case there. But once I made that transition, and every transition's challenging after 17 years. Go work for a company for 17 years and then go and switch. I mean, you're nervous. You don't know if you're going to do well. But again, at the end of the day, I know I'm going to, do my best and just get results and be a pleasure to work with. My uncle told me that once, and he's running a company, and he's like, you do those two things and you'll be just fine. And so I've always remembered that as well.
Neat. I think the other last thing that I was kind of thinking of as we had that conversation was, where do you see that a lot of, we were talking about the mini reactors, but then you were also talking about, generally with economics, things scale up. Do you see as nuclear power maybe starts to make a return in the investment, will it be, these power, these data centers, will they be having their own power on site, or will it be, you as like the supplier, the utility supplier, will it be a lot of, your type of?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Which you're probably thinking in your head, well, of course it is. That's why I asked. But I think at the end of the day, the data centers, those large load customers that need high reliability, in other words, they can't lose power, want two things. They want to be hooked into the grid, because hooked into, not islanded off, not a decentralization, not a mini grid. You can't get 99.999 or 69% reliability that way. You just can't. But when you're hooked to the grid seems infinite to loads. So that's where they want to be. And they want to have reliable emergency backup power. Their ability to shift their loads from one data center to another, depending on whether they're doing learning or whether it's execution, certainly plays into that. But at the end of the day, they want it, which means we need to build infrastructure. And so I kind of see it going one of two ways. I'm a mechanical engineer, and I know we're, probably primary audience is construction and civil engineers, but building a nuclear power plant has very little to do with nuclear engineering. Even running a nuclear power plant, we had 800 people on site at Quad Cities between the two units. That's almost 2,000 megawatts, and we probably had 8 reactor engineers. Everybody else was electrical, mechanical, trade, security, all of that. We need to build infrastructure, and that takes construction, that takes civil, that takes material management, that takes project management. That's what scares investors, what scares utilities. I'm just going to use the word scares. What makes them pause, whatever word we want to use for building new nuclear, is because of cost overruns. That's the biggest. It's not the technology challenge. It's going to work. It's the cost overruns. How do I know that this $12 billion project isn't going to become a $20 billion project and bankrupt my company? That's what they're worried about. And so, like, if I was in construction engineering or civil engineering, I would be, the world is going to be your oyster because we have to build stuff. Either we need to build stuff or someone's going to invent some little chip that requires 1/10 of the power, and everything's going to go flat again until the next thing happens in 10 or 20 years. But energy, and lots of vocal leaders say this. If you want to look at how the quality of life across the world, you want to look about gross domestic product, it all ties back to energy, water quality, those essentials of life. And the energy equation is not going away. But the limiter is not the technology. It is absolutely how can we build it on time, on budget, with the workforce that we need and the supply chain to support it. And that's square in your guys' house. And I really need you to help figure that out because we have a lot of building issues to do.
Man, I know. And this is something that I have thought at some point there's going to be a hiring downturn for our okay, so like if we rewind the clock, say like 2008 to 2011, huge, obviously the financial crunch and the whole thing. And it wasn't, job offers for our students, it was not good. But since then, let's just say since 2012 or 2013, we have been on a tear with regards to job offers, how many job offers per student, placement rate at graduation. Con-E we've had the highest placement rate in the College of Engineering, which means in the university, for 12 years in a row. And I keep thinking, okay, there's going to be another construction slowdown. Eventually, there's going to be a slowdown. There's going to be a time when not everybody gets 2 and 3 job offers. Well, it just hasn't happened.
Yeah.
And every time I think it's going to happen, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And the moral of the story is that, the good news for Calvin and his peers is that we can't produce enough of them.
Right.
We could literally go beg people to join Con-E and we don't get enough.
Yeah.
It's maddening. I just don't understand it. But that's
it's
good
exciting.
for him. Yeah, for these guys, it's awesome.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely
awesome problem.
You can go anywhere you want.
Yeah, for them to have. I mean, it's great for them, but wow, we need more people in the industry. That is a fact, and that is not changing anytime soon.
No, and we need more people in the industry who have built things.
Yeah, and can build things.
Things, absolutely.
Right. Our industry in construction is there's too many my age and not enough Calvin's age.
Yeah.
That's a serious problem that I don't know how we overcome, but well, but we can at least call it out here on the podcast, right?
There you go.
Right? Okay, so I guess where do you see the industry heading? Like if we were to, wrap this up, kind of where do you see the nuclear and power going? I mean, I have my theories on it, but
yeah, I mean, you've got a couple demonstration projects that have to win.
Yeah.
You've got Canada's building a 330-ish megawatt small modular reactor, which Tennessee Valley Authority is very much wanting to build at the Clinch River site.
Yeah.
You've got the TerraPower Natrium reactor in Wyoming, and you've got a whole bunch of startups. Somebody needs to win, and what I mean by win is they need to deliver it on as close to on time, on budget, and be reliable.
Yeah.
Because that will open up
the floodgates.
The floodgates for now that it's known, right, that you can put your arms around it, that it's been proven. And there will be a down selection. You can't have 73 nuclear startups all promising the same thing, and they're all going to succeed, right? There will be winners.
A sifting.
There will be winners, just like we expect in a free market.
Oh yeah,
100%. And so the policy stuff at both the federal and the state levels, those always take time, right? They're super important, but they take time.
But they will follow public sentiment.
True statement.
Okay, they will ultimately in the long term. Usually, people get what the public as a general rule over years gets what they want. Okay, now what they want, like if we for the past 20 years, it's not been nuclear power.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say that it is absolutely fascinating to me that if you look at the safety of various power supplies, nuclear is one of the best. It's even safer than wind energy, in deaths per terawatt hour. And a lot of that comes from maintenance. And it fascinates me in the state of Iowa. Probably if you've lived here long enough, somebody whose house has been blown up by an LP leak.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, who doesn't? I mean, do you? I do.
I don't know anyone.
Well, okay.
But I live in Illinois.
Oh, good point.
So you're good.
All right. Okay.
I haven't busted your myth.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, in Iowa, especially in rural Iowa, where there's so many people with LP tanks and LP furnaces, one of our neighbors, their house got blown up by an LP leak. And yet that doesn't scare people like nuclear power does, which is way safer.
Yeah, I mean, mostly any fear to nuclear power is related to just not understanding it or being around it.
Yeah.
When we were
and a healthy fear of things like Chernobyl.
Yeah.
Which is not even related to American nuclear power plants, but
it's
anyway.
Physically not possible from a physics perspective. But
yes, it is.
But all that being said, I think sentiment has turned tremendously. It is trendy to say nuclear now. There's a lot of factors that drive that. You still have a very core opposition piece, but even a lot of your environmentalists who were opposed to nuclear are no longer, or at least open, because at the end of the day, you need that firm dispatchable power, which means if it's not nuclear, it's coal or gas.
Right.
And that's not what most people want.
Right.
Because I'm not going to say all people, but that's what a lot of people don't want. And so nuclear just checks a lot of the boxes. It's energy dense. I don't need tens of thousands of acres of wind. I don't need to cover farmland with solar panels. It's super energy dense. It has real jobs at that town. It's a generational asset. You're talking about a 100-year project that's going to, around these small towns, these energy communities, that they live off of that. I mean, that is the cornerstone of their well-being. And all of those things together is we want one. And I think you're seeing that across the nation. So we just got to get a couple of these built and under our belts, and it'll open up
successful.
The floodgates.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree with that. Is that success just breeds more success,
and then people are going to be waiting in line.
Yeah, Yeah. Well, somebody's got to go first. There's the tough part.
And that's the tough part, right?
Yeah. Well,
someone had to pay $11,000 for that first flat panel TV.
Exactly.
But
somebody did.
Somebody did. And
now I can buy one for $100.
That's right.
So,
no, very exciting. It's exciting to be in engineering.
Time.
It's exciting to be at Iowa State. There's so much going on out there, and just energy alone touches everything. And touches everything. And so, hopefully we're entering an age of really building again.
Yeah. Well, I think we have to. I think there is no such thing as the status quo. Either you're building up or you're declining. The idea of declining with regards to energy production stuff, not an option, I don't think. Yep. So I guess that only leaves one answer, and tough. It's going to take people building. So I guess, Calvin, you're in the right spot.
Very excited.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess any last thoughts, anything you wanted to wrap up, or Calvin, or any questions before we kind of draw this episode to a conclusion?
No, I just want to say thank you to Jeremy for being willing to come up.
Hey, I appreciate you driving all the way.
It was a lot of fun.
From Illinois all the way to here to Iowa State.
It's great being back.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, that's awesome. Is your company hiring? I'm sure that's, Calvin.
Every company's hiring.
Every company's hiring. All right. Well, if you got skills, talk to this guy. Okay. Well, in that respect, I guess, thank you for coming all this way just to prove I was right. That energy and water are going to be the biggest issues of Calvin's career and his peers' career. Nothing said today will change me. In fact, it just reinforces what I already thought. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Well, Calvin, thank you for bringing in a good guest. And thank you for traveling out here. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up for another episode of the Office Hours Podcast with Professor Brad Perkins. Thank you so much for tuning in.